Hello, welcome back. I'm Alex. Jesus. I wanted to show you guys my updated contour routine because I changed it and I mentioned it. I change it, I don't know, every 30 seconds. And I mentioned it recently and people were like, I want to see your updated contour routine. I'm going to include my updated nose contour routine in here as well. I changed my contour routine pretty regularly, mostly because I like to try different things. I think we all do. You get sick of the same old stuff, and you also get to the point where you think like a certain technique is gonna be, it's gonna be even better. It's gonna be even better for your face, and that's what happened to me the last time. I experimented with the skull contour for a little while. Halloween had a lot to do with that. My Morticia makeup look a couple years ago had a lot to do with that. Buccal fat removal had a lot to do with that. I just mean that it was like, I never had it, obviously. But it was in the ether. The conversation around it was in the ether. And everybody was trying to look gaunt and crazy. What else? Oh, and then after that, I saw a video of Hung Van Gogh, who I love, and he was doing Michelle Phan's makeup. He did some techniques very differently on her face, and I just kind of like wanted to do them to myself. And so that's kind of how I started doing my my contour. I started following that. This is kind of going to be a PSA about making sure that you are doing your contour not because you want to look like someone else, but because it works best for your actual face shape. And it also is going to depend heavily on your preference, like what it is that you're trying to, like what's the look that you're trying to go for here? What's the end result? What do you want exactly? Sometimes people who have a round face want to tone that roundness down. Sometimes they don't really care, you know? So it's all gonna be in your preference. Like what exactly are you trying to achieve with your contour placement? I just did a bunch of, I swatched all of my foundations and my skin is extremely dry. So I'm prepping. I'm gonna do my foundation and my concealer, but I don't even know if I'm gonna show it. I might just like zoom through it. I just kind of wanted to like get into it. Let's get into it. You know what I mean? Talk about what the hell we're doing today. So I have a pretty round face. I feel like as I've gotten older, it's gotten rounder. It was a little bit more heart-shaped when I was younger. But I have like a relatively smaller chin. I don't have like a super cut jawline or anything. Like if I look this way, it's not like prominent, you know what I mean? My cheekbones over here are like relatively wide. Just my face in general, I feel like it's gotten, I don't know, it just feels like it's gotten wider to me. And especially as you get older, you know, like gravity and like loss of fat in certain areas of your face tends to like drag things down. And I just kind of feel like it's ended up making my face look a lot more round. I do like to make my face look a little bit more heart-shaped in general. I'm gonna do my foundation and concealer while we chat about what I'm trying to achieve. So I would say for the most part, my face ends up looking, probably because I don't have a super tiny nose. It's not, I think it fits my face just fine, but it is not prominent. I don't know if you would use the word prominent because I feel like that makes people feel like I'm saying that my nose is really big. It's just like, it's not super tiny. You know what I mean? In proportion to the rest of my face, it stands out a little bit. And I kind of feel like because of that, and because I don't have like a huge prominent jaw, not that I want necessarily a prominent jaw, but because my chin tends to kind of like go back a little bit, my nose comes forward a little bit, it ends up kind of making my face look like it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's like coming at you. I noticed that especially in mobile images, what? When I take like a selfie with certain lenses, you know, when the lens is closer to my face, it ends up like making my nose look really, really big, which I don't love. I don't love that. So I've changed, I've really like sat and thought about my lights and darks and what I want to achieve with them. I'm going with my About Face foundation. I stopped doing my makeup in this order. I do my contour before my concealer now, but for the sake of this video, I'm gonna do it second. So the tricks that I'm going to share with you will apply to both powders and creams. You just obviously want to keep in mind if you're using powders, then you want to make sure that you're applying your foundation, your concealer, and going in and setting before you start blending with your contours and bronzers, whatever it might be, to prevent like skipping and all of that stuff. I actually have an extremely in-depth, long ass video that I am creating for beginners, makeup beginners. We're gonna be talking about everything. What is happening here? What is happening here? Why am I peeling? The rest of my skin looks good. We'll just ignore that part. So let's go into contour. How did my contour change? First of all, what was I doing before? When I was watching that Hung Van Gogh video where he was doing Michelle Phan's makeup, he was focusing her contour. He started at the cheek here. So he started pushing, rather than starting back here, he started pushing it in here. Now she had like relatively like fuller cheeks. I was doing that for a little while, and what it ended up doing was just kind of dragging my face down, because for the most part, I don't have, like, if you look right here, I have no volume there. Like, not at all. Like, this part of my face is very flat, actually. Like, it's not, I don't have these like round like cheeks right here. All of the volume of my face, my cheekbones, is up here. Yeah, I'm actually like kind of wide. Like, it's kind of wide back here. So I've gone back to contour, when I contour, starting back here, because since I don't have a ton of fullness here, to create a more youthful look, I want to place my contour back here to push this area back in space. Okay, I'm using Anastasia Fawn. We'll go back to amber at some point. So I'm pressing at my ear, and then blending up. So this is going to kind of narrow this area a little bit and snatch this area. So we're really going to define that cheekbone. But since this area is already so wide, I can get away with contouring this to define this part, like the sharper part of my cheekbone, the higher part of my cheekbone, and also keeping this area light helps to balance the fact that my jawline is not like cut. You know what I mean? It goes back a little bit further. So I'm focusing all of my contouring back a little bit. It naturally kind of goes like this, in this shape, but I don't want to drag it down too far. I don't want to bring it in too far. Focusing here. Okay, I just want to make sure that it's blended. But again, I don't want to take it in too far, because once I start taking product here, it ends up dragging my face down. It ends up making this area look too hollow and less voluminous. And as it is, like, I'm not trying to get rid of that volume. You know what I mean? It ended up just aging me so much more, which nobody needs. Okay, so pushing this, taking it right here. So if you find that you don't have a lot of cheek volume, center cheek volume, and your face is a little bit wider, then you don't want to be starting in here. You want to be starting back here. Everyone's faces are completely different. There are different kinds of heart-shaped faces. There are different kinds of round faces. A round face might have, one round face might have a slightly larger jawline. The other might have a slightly larger forehead. So it's really about piecing it together, focusing on your face in sections. That's why for my cheekbones, I'm starting here. I'm not looking at the fact that my face tends to be a little bit more round, my entire face, and then contouring it how, some chart says to contour a round face, which can be useful. It can be helpful if you don't know where to begin. But I'm gonna go in sections to tailor it to my actual head, okay? So now for my jawline, that hasn't really changed that much. This area, because my face does end up looking a little bit more round, this area, and also because my jawline goes back a little bit, this area ends up coming up a little bit. I like to push this back, like if I just kind of double chin it up a little bit, I'll just pick up, this is my brush. This brush is coming soon, okay? I can't link it yet, it's not here, but it will be very soon. So I like to start in the area that like I want to push back the most. So this, I want to be in shadow, okay? So the part when I make a double chin that comes forward, see how instantly that just kind of like pushed that area back? See? If I keep it light, it comes forward. If I start to make it a little bit darker, so I'm going to start there. Blend under the jawline. Want to make sure that everything is blended, so I want to make sure that there's no like strip, obviously, but I'm going to lay it down to begin with and then start blending downward. Okay, now I want to make sure, now obviously like we have quite a bit of a line there, I'm going to leave it for now. I'm going to make sure that I'm doing this evenly. So I'm going to do the same thing, this area right here. And going in and picking up the product with your brush and then laying it in just helps prevent you from harsh lines and also applying way too much product. Just, it like instantly looks softer than if I were to draw it on, which like, don't get me wrong, you've seen me do it. I draw it on, sometimes I'm lazy. But if you've been struggling with like placing too much down, then you might wanna try picking it up with your brush. Okay, so now that looks pretty good. That's like that's what I'm trying to achieve. Now I'm just gonna wipe my brush off on my little Sigma travel switch. Whichever side, I don't even care. For eye brushes. And then in this area, I'm just going to gently, because I don't wanna like move it around too much. I'm just gonna soften that line, which is why this brush is so good and I can't wait for it to come out. It's perfect for this. Okay, so just softening. You can always go in with your sponge or whatever, or brush, whatever you applied your foundation with to blend. And then this contrast that I've created pushes this area back in space, brings this forward a little bit, but I am going to show you how I define this further with concealer. All right, we're gonna brighten. For my forehead, typically I don't use a contour color because I don't feel that it's necessary. In fact, a cooler contour color, when it's placed up on the higher points of your face, can look really weird because typically you tan. That's like where the sun is gonna hit. It's gonna be a little bit warmer. So that's where I would focus my bronzer. Now, if you're someone who has a warmer, medium skin tone, medium deep skin tone, deep skin tones that are warmer, you might not need two shades. You might not need to use a cool contour and a warmer bronzer because your skin tone is warmer, is already leaning warmer, and it can get away with using a warmer color all over your face. In fact, if you end up using something cool, too cool toned, it can look weird next to the warmth in your skin. It can look very unnatural. So some people who have like much warmer, more medium tan, deep skin tones can get away with contouring with like just a bronzer color for them. So you don't need to like worry about this. If you have one color that you think works for everything, then go for it. If I contour with my bronzer because I'm very, very light, and also I would say mostly because I'm very, very light, it would look crazy. Now I'm going to just bronze my forehead because once again, I like to create a little bit more of a heart shape anyway. So I don't need my forehead to look like super tiny. Plus I wear my hair forward for the most part. You like kind of cover it up. I'm gonna use the Merit Cien bronzer, which is just kind of like a nice warm color. And since my forehead is pretty large, but I want it to look a little bit more like, I kind of want it to be wide. I'm going to, like wider this way. I'm going to focus it up here. So shortening the top a little bit, which you won't even really see. And then just kind of blending downward. So focusing the dark here in this stripe, and then just bringing whatever's left over down so that it is blending. And I have like a little bit of warmth there. So I'm not really contouring, I'm just kind of warming. I'm gonna pick up that same bronzer and I'm gonna do a similar thing. So starting back here, I'm starting a little bit higher up on the cheekbone. So I'm just kind of using this to warm and bronze this area, but I like to focus kind of in this semicircle shape. So not like up too high. I do want to make sure that I'm blending. I'm not taking it down low, just warming and defining this cheekbone. It's kind of like this shape a little bit. Nice, what are those triangles called? Acute? Acute angle? I didn't do well in geometry. Fun fact, my geometry teacher had a heart attack in one of my classes, and nobody knew what was going on. We were really freaked out. We thought he was joking at first. He was fine, by the way. He survived. Everything was good. Avoiding, very much avoiding this part of my face. So for my nose contour, that's what I also wanted to show you guys because I promised that I would. So I'm gonna zoom you in a lot. So I'm gonna go back to Anastasia Fawn. So if we use the same sort of like color theory here, I'm going to pick up a warmer color. Now this is warm for my nose because like nose contour for fair skin is like so strange. If it's too warm, it just looks so crazy. So I'm using Anastasia Fawn, which in my opinion is slightly warm for my nose, to cut the tip. Because this would be one of the high points, you know, where the sun is shining down. So if this is a little bit warm, that's completely fine. So I'm gonna start there. I'm using the Sephora 15 brush to apply this. I'm just gonna pat and then blend slightly into the sides, into side planes of my nose. Okay, so this is like a little bit of warmth. Now, if you don't really want to contour your nose too much, this is completely fine. Like, especially for my nose shape, totally fine. But I like to do a little bit more. So my favorite contour color that I've been using, which I've mentioned, definitely, you've seen this in like most of my videos. This is actually an eyeshadow stick. This is the eye shaping stilo from Make Beauty. It's in the shade Shore, and it is the perfect color for contouring my nose. It's an eyeshadow stick, so it doesn't like, it blends, but it's gonna set. So you wanna work quickly. So I'm gonna pick a little bit of this up using my 15 brush. And I like to start with the side of my nose that needs the most straightening. And I'm gonna place this here. Now, I've made mistakes in the past of bringing this line in too far. You also don't want to bring it out too far because it'll end up making your nose look wider. So I'm trying to make my nose look slightly more narrow, a little bit more straight, you know? See how it's just kind of like bringing in a little bit? If I bring this in too much, it just ends up looking like really, really obvious. So I'm going to place that down, wipe it off on my switch, and then I'm just going to pat to blend. Okay, and I'm mostly focusing it down here. I have like a bump up here that can be kind of difficult to navigate, so I'm kind of avoiding that area. This color is so good for fair skin. It's like perfectly cool toned. It's actually quite olive. And I'm keeping it relatively light. And I've been doing this before my concealer recently, so that I can brighten and erase anything that I may have messed up. Okay, and then for my final nose contour step, I'm gonna take that same Shore eye stilo, and I'm gonna go just under the tip of the nose. So again, if it's on the lower plane, if it's underneath, you want it to be the most cool toned. So if I put the warm color here, it would look super weird, which is why I'm going in with Shore. Nice and cool toned. Okay, so just little bits. It does like a little something, but those colors work really nicely. Now for my concealer, I'm going to brighten. So for my concealer, I'm going to use my Rare Beauty concealer. I'm gonna be using 170W, which is a really nice yellow toned concealer. Okay, so an obvious one for me is my under eyes because I have dark circles. That really hasn't changed. I like to brighten up the sides of my nose, which really helps with the nose contour. I'm gonna show you all of that, but the, let me just do the stupid little ones that you already know about. I do like to brighten this little area right here. I'm gonna use my Sigma, I figured out the name of this. It's the 3D HD sponge. So I do like to brighten this area. I also get a little bit of redness between my brows. So a little more coverage. And I just kind of like in this diamond shape, basically, is what I like to brighten up. Not taking it up too far, but I do want to make sure that it's blended. So just a little highlight right there. Since my chin is so tiny, I mean, not that it's like so tiny, but you know what I mean. Since it goes back pretty far, it doesn't come forward. I like to kind of balance that by brightening this area. So this part of my chin, I'm not trying to make it look like gigantic, so I'm not taking it all the way down, but this little triangle right here, I do want to brighten to bring this area forward just slightly, which also helps to create contrast down here, which is going to push that area back even more. Okay, so just brightening the chin a little bit. And then if you want to, this isn't something that I always do because I usually like bake, but just to kind of like amp up that cut definition of the contour and prevent my jawline from just completely disappearing, you can also just like amp that up a little bit. See how that kind of like brings this forward a little bit and cuts that? I really don't do it all the time, but sometimes I do. It just depends on how I'm feeling. So I thought I'd include it. Honestly, usually I bake and that does enough. Okay, so just like, ooh, those cheekbones are popping. Now another thing is, once again, I'm trying to maintain volume in the center of my face, right? So I want this area to be pretty bright. I don't want to apply too much of this concealer in this area because if you apply like a ton of it, you know, around your laugh lines and stuff, that can break up because no matter what, your face is going to crease and then you will end up with creasing. But I do like to brighten this a little. It's all in the amount. I'm gonna do, this hasn't really changed, I'm just gonna do a tiny bit of highlighting out here, which helps to kind of like give a little bit of a lift to the eyes. I do have darkness in the outer corner of my eyes. And it also just adds that extra contrast against the contour and bronzer that we put there to really make those cheekbones pop. Okay, now obviously coverage under the eyes, right? Because I have dark circles, I already color corrected. But as you can see, I have like a hollow here, and then we have the nose plane comes out quite a bit. I actually like to place my concealer not underneath my eyes, but right there. So basically like on the plane of my nose, because I'm gonna brighten the side of my nose and just underneath my eyes to make these two become one plane. So by brightening up the side of my nose, it helps to kind of make this plane look like it's the same as my under eye, which in turn kind of narrows my nose. So it's just like an extra step to complement the nose contour that we went in. See how like this looks so much flatter already than like this area? I mean, I've got this little guy right here, so you can't really see it, but just flattens this area nicely. And again, I don't want to take this in too far, or else we kind of end up making things look like really unnatural and weird. So just focusing it here. Make sure you're looking, stepping back and looking. You don't want to cover up your contour, but you do want to make sure that it's blended. It doesn't look like super harsh. Okay, so can you see how brightening these areas really just kind of like adds a little bit more volume to the center of my face? It makes my face end up looking a little bit more youthful than if I were to bring all the dark colors in and not out here. And it's not that we're making my face look not round. It's just that we're complementing my features to cut those cheekbones, define the jawline a little bit more. It's just those tiny little like tricks that complement my face shape, you know, just little refinements. All right, guys, I just finished off like setting, doing blush, highlight, stuff like that. Finished off my brows, just so you can see the finished product all together. This is how I've been contouring. Okay. Okay. This is how I used to contour my face a while back, and I do think that it is the most flattering way to do it. And I just kind of like lost my way because I was experimenting. Sometimes experimenting doesn't work, but you learn what not to do when you try new things. Alrighty, let's answer a question. I feel like I haven't done that in a video in a minute because I've been doing voiceovers a lot. Okay, so this person's asked, should you put concealer on top of a powder color corrector? How would that work? And then they have an olive question. I wouldn't, absolutely not. I don't know what product you're talking about because you didn't let me know, but if you're using a powder color corrector, my assumption would be, listen, you can use a color corrector without putting any concealer on top. That is that's a technique. You can use concealer alone, you can use color corrector alone, you can use color corrector and then put concealer on top of that, okay? So if you're using a powder, I would assume that all you're using the color corrector for is to literally color correct, to neutralize whatever color is underneath your eyes. Now listen, you can experiment, okay? If you are young, okay, you got super tight, taut under eyes, you could probably get away with it. You know, you could use a powder color corrector, and then maybe hit it with a little bit of a mist, maybe a Max Fix Plus, maybe an Urban Decay All-Nighter, any kind of mist, anything that's just kind of like set it in. If you have a powder color corrector that just like the color works so perfectly and you want to use a concealer over it, that's an option. And then you can try going in with a cream concealer. That seems like a lot of work, but like if that's something that you're interested in, you could probably do it. If you're someone like me who has like quite a bit of lines and stuff, or if you just have more mature skin, or if it's dry, I wouldn't recommend it. I would not recommend putting down a powder and then putting a cream on top of it. Typically, I reserve that kind of thing for spot concealing. So like if you have a dark spot, you have a blemish somewhere on your face, and you've powdered and you find that you need more coverage, you can go back in that tiny little area with a cream, like a thicker cream, and then set it again with powder, whatever you need to do to cover that area, because that's the area that really needs the coverage. That is not going to apply to your whole face because you're going to end up with cakey makeup. And your under eyes are already so incredibly, like, the skin is so delicate. And it's like, not to mention, it's the spot that everyone is looking. You know what I mean? Like when you're talking to somebody, they are straight up looking at your eyes, okay? So like if you have extra coverage over here on your face, most likely people aren't gonna notice it. But if they're looking at your eyes and you're caking up like powder and creams on top of the powder, I don't think it would be a good idea. Those are all of my little tricks for that situation. And then you said, About Face does indeed have olive foundations. Yes, they do. I just filmed a video about it. And you said, have I tried the EX1 foundations? Not sure if they make a shade light enough for you, and the product is difficult to find. Yes, I remember when EX1, this was years ago. Damn, dude, it might have been like 6 or 7 years ago at this point. I remember when EX1 first came out and people were or I don't know if they had like first come out around then, but I remember that they were like, everyone was saying olive foundations, and I was like, oh, okay, I gotta try it. And I bought the foundations and they were not at all what I thought that they would be. They were not. They were like, I personally remember them being like super yellow and super orange, the shades. And I was like, how would anyone ever call these olive? I don't know if they've redone stuff, but yeah, they claimed to have olive foundations and I never believed it. So that was my experience, but that was a while back. I don't know if it's any different now. So that's it for this video, guys. That's how I contour my face. Thank you for the questions. I hope that this was helpful in some way. Just kind of like, make sure that you're experimenting. But if you are picking up tips from other people, make sure that they have like at least like little sections of their face that you want to emulate, or the technique for the section of their face that they want to emulate. Make sure that yours is at least a little bit similar. Because if it's not, chances are it's not going to look good on you. As always, thank you for watching. Let me know what you want to see next. Subscribe, like, whatever, comment, all the things that help me out. And then I will see you hopefully in the next one. I'll be there. Hopefully you will too. Bye.